Hey guys, I just wanted to make a video for you covering the proposal argument and the annotated bibliography. Hopefully the resources that I've posted in the additional readings and your reading responses, application practice have helped you prepare for this. But let's go ahead and cover something. So the proposal argument, you can look at the exact same problem, issue, conflict that you looked at in your causal argument. And the big difference between this essay and the last essay is that the causal argument focuses on what the problem is. The proposal argument focuses on how to solve this problem. Now, if you want to choose a completely different topic, you absolutely can. But if you'd like to stick with the same topics, in fact, if you would like to use all of the sources that you've used from your rhetorical analysis and your causal argument together, feel free to do so. Whatever makes this assignment as easy for you as possible. So again, for the proposal argument, you're looking at a particular problem, issue, or conflict, and you are trying to explain how we can solve this problem. Maybe there are many steps to solving this problem. Maybe there's one particular action that needs to be taken. Or maybe there's a couple of really good solutions we could look at and a couple of really weak solutions that have more cons that outweigh the pros in your opinion. And those are all things that you can talk about. Now, what I would like to say that some of you might find a relief, you can actually go ahead and use a page of your causal argument that you turned in from your final draft, and you can use it as some background information or some introductory information, some context information for your proposal argument. So you can use up to one page, copy and pasted. It can be different paragraphs, it can be consecutive paragraphs, however it is you want to do that, but up to just one page, and then the 4 additional pages, since this assignment is 5 to 7 pages. Those other at least 4 pages will need to be a new invention for you, something that you haven't written yet. Let me skip down to here are typically the parts of an argument. This is kind of called the Toolman model of argumentation. So you've got the introduction where you state the problem, you include your thesis statement that states your claim, and your claim is this is the course of action that we can use to solve, to address this problem. Then you're going to list out a bunch of evidence. So this is whenever, if you're doing an essay on global warming and you say deforestation is one of the causes of global warming, here's how we can stop deforestation, then you would start listing evidence as far as studies have shown that with more trees, these are the results on the environment. Therefore, we need to be planting more trees, conserving more of our forests, reducing products that consume so much of our forests. Another part that you can add is a list of counter arguments. And this is a really good way to beef up your essay. You can use some counter arguments and say someone else is recommending that we do this approach. I don't personally think that that's effective. Let me evaluate this counter argument. And then let me show its strengths and weaknesses and maybe why it's not the best solution. That'll be in your rebuttal section, so why other solutions wouldn't be as effective, and then why maybe is that. And then of course you'll have a conclusion. This can be an outline that you can use to help you. This is just one of the many options that you can go with. Let me go ahead and look at the prompt. So on Friday last week, July 8th, you submitted some pre-writing, a list of solutions for the problem that you're looking at. Again, I have the 5 pieces of an argument here. Again, this is known as the Toulmin argument. 5 to 7 pages, 5 to 7 sources that you will need to use as well. And remember, those sources can be from your rhetorical analysis and your causal argument. You'll probably have to find 1 or 2 more if you end up doing that. Or again, if you decide to start completely from scratch, that's up to you. Just making sure that you'll be able to set aside the time to do that. This is an example that I wanted to share with you. So let's say the problem that I was looking at was sexual abuse in the church. Maybe for my causal argument, what I did is I looked at the causes, what maybe leads predators to invade religious spaces, and then what are the effects of the victims of the church on the predators, on the leaders, things like that. So maybe that's what I did for my causal argument. Now for the proposal argument, let's say that this would be my 2-sentence thesis statement. To address the scale of sexual abuse in the church, Christian communities should implement the following strategy: accept accountability, educate churches, build a safe community, and maintain contact with professionals and organizations. Based on the expertise of researchers, advocates, and survivors, these tactics would address the pandemic of sexual abuse in the church. So, in my thesis statement, in my claim, I am stating here's the problem: sexual abuse in the church, the scale of sexual abuse in the church. And then I offer a 4-step strategy of how to address that: accept accountability, educate churches, build a safe community, maintain contact with professionals and organizations. I'm probably going to at least include a paragraph for each of those in the order that I'm listing them in my thesis statement. So I'd first have a paragraph about the importance of accepting accountability, educating churches, building a safe community, how in maintaining contact with professionals and organizations. So how each of those things can help solve this problem of sexual abuse in religious faith spaces. Something else that I might do in my essay is I might go over counterproposals. Some churches decide to address sexual abuse by dealing with it very privately, it just being an in-house process, procedure. Victims are encouraged to be silent in that time, sometimes demanded and manipulated to be silent in such times. And sometimes predators are protected. Well, they didn't mean it. We'll give them, a soft talking to, and they'll know to not do that again, and that's what they need. So that's kind of where the first counter argument is that I'm thinking of. So this idea of we're going to treat this pandemic with silence. We're not really going to publicly address it or outsource for knowledge and training, counseling. We're not going to do any of that. We're going to deal with it in-house. We're going to keep this talk to people who need to know, and then we're going to push it under the rug. I could continue to talk about that after I explain what that counter argument is and say, this is why I don't think it's effective. I don't think it's effective because that seems to be a way to shirk accountability, shirk responsibility for things that you have done. It's a way to continue to traumatize victims by asking them to remain quiet about it. And then to not outsource, that seems like a very dangerous, misled, maybe even prejudiced thing to do. There does seem to be some research, some logic that seems to indicate that women are less believed whenever it comes to particularly a prominent man in a church assaulting or harassing them. It seems to be less believed, taken less seriously by church leaders sometimes in different communities. So that would be my essay. For example, if I were going to talk about a proposal, I would talk about the problem of sexual abuse. For maybe a page, I could pull from my causal argument and say, this is how big this is. This is how big the scale of sexual abuse is. And these are the problems that we've got from this. And then move on to, here are my steps. Here are some counter arguments. Here's why those aren't effective. Here's a conclusion. So 5 to 7 pages, it's a lot of writing. And then with that, you have your annotated bibliography. So let me go ahead and go over annotated bibliographies with you. Let's cover the definitions first and foremost. And by the way, I do want to say that this presentation is available for you on Moodle. So the definitions. A bibliography is a list of sources gathered from research and cited. Bibliography, it's the list of your sources. You see it a lot on your works cited page. For APA, for MLA, you'll see the works cited page it's called a works cited page. For APA, a lot of times it's called references. For Chicago and some other styles, I believe it's called a bibliography. So again, it's just that list. However, throwing the word annotation there, annotation is a summary and evaluation of that source. So an annotated bibliography, it's a list of entries of sources for their summaries and their evaluations. And in that work in progress file that I have for you that has annotated bibliographies and proposal arguments in it, if you're struggling with this, please look at those 2 chapters. Just search around in our work in progress, in our additional readings folder, and you'll be able to find that work in progress document. It's not the one that's the rhetorical analysis. It should immediately pop up with an annotated bibliography. Each entry should include 2 things: the correctly cited source and a summary and an evaluation of that source. Here's an example for you. This is in about the 150 to 200 word length that I want yours to be at. So there are 4 things that I would like to point out. We first have the entry that's correctly cited in MLA format. If you want to do APA format, that's absolutely fine. Just make sure you're consistent and spot on, regardless of which style you go with. In about 4 sentences, the writer has summarized what the article is about that they're using. Then in the next sentence, the writer says why they believe the source is credible. It has a lack of diversity. It's got a diversity of firsthand accounts, various demographics all over the world to talk about this relationship between children, social media, and their growing sexualization. And then in the very last sentence, the writer states how they can use this source in their research, in their proposal argument. This is an actual entry from a student of mine. I changed some things around to make it a little bit more cohesive, but this is something that a student did that was a great example to use for you. So there's an example for an annotated bibliography. Now you would need to do this summary and analysis for each of your sources. So you are including 5 to 7 sources, you will need 5 to 7 annotated bibliography entries. Ideally, these are going to be the same sources that you use for your proposal argument. However, let's say you decided to crank out your annotated bibliography, you want it done, so you don't have to worry about it next week. Okay, you might have some smaller things to change, but that's okay. As you continue writing your proposal argument, you may decide, you know what, I don't want to use this source anymore. I want to use a different source. You do not have to go back through and change your original annotated bibliography for the new sources that you've included in your proposal argument. So if your proposal argument and annotated bibliography are turned in today with the exact same 5 sources, that's great, that's fine. If you continue writing your proposal argument and you decide to change a source or two, you don't have to correct that on your annotated bibliography. So rough draft for the annotated bibliography, again, today, if you need a couple of extra days, please email me and ask. I will need those to be in, however, by Friday. 5 to 7 sources, 150 to 200 words in length. That's the size of a pretty well-constructed paragraph. And it cannot be any less than that.